Hey guys, tonight we step into the darkest shadows of history, where a cruel disease spares no one, even those wearing crowns weighed down with gold and jewels. Imagine sneaking deep into a pyramid, where the air has the thickness of death's dry scent and fear, each footstep echoing on the cold, unforgiving stone. This disease not only devours flesh, but spreads terror with terrifying speed, like an unstoppable whirlwind of death. In an instant, sores cover the body, nerves become paralyzed, rendering the victim unable to feel fire or ice. Its transmission rate even crossed borders, just one accidental touch, and the curse passed from one person to another before anyone could react. In those days, medicine was in its infancy. There was no remedy powerful enough to fight it. The only so-called treatments were primitive folk cures, smearing crocodile dung and applying mouldy bread to the wounds. Even 10 members of the royal family people, once thought immortal, succumbed to this devilish bacterium. The origin of the disease remains a mystery, some whispered. It was the Queen's tomb curse. Others believed a treacherous vizier had poisoned the throne itself. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And don't forget to share where you're watching from and what the local time is for you in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. And now, we begin our journey in the darkest shadows of history, where millennia-old mysteries lie silent beneath the limestone. Part 1: Darkness within the Egyptian pyramid. You open your eyes into pitch-black darkness, your chest tightening as the air presses in, thick with the scent of fine dust and the chill rising from parched limestone. Our footstep echoes, as if casting endless ripples down the yawning corridor. In your hand, only a flickering torch illuminates the mysterious hieroglyph-carved walls. The dancing flame casts flickering patches of light and shadow, restless as if phantoms swirl around you. On a roughly hewn limestone block, a relief emerges with startling clarity: the first royal figure of Egypt, Pharaoh Akhenaten, the heretic king who abolished the polytheistic tradition centuries old, born during the glorious reign of Thutmose III. He was the son of Amenhotep III and Queen Tiye, and later the brother of Tutankhamun. Yet instead of the customary portrait of a pharaoh clutching a scepter or raising offerings, this relief depicts a scene of unspeakable brutality: swollen, blistered hands, deformed fingers, skin riddled with festering sores. Hieroglyphs surrounding the image record wails of agony and despair. This is not an ordinary ailment, but leprosy itself, a merciless scourge that eats away flesh, destroys nerves, and robs royalty of the divine aura. Egyptians believed their rulers possessed. It is almost unbelievable that ancient Egyptian healers once boasted such advances, using crocodile dung as sunscreen and mouldy grain paste to staunch wounds. Yet even the greatest physicians could do nothing against leprosy. In the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical texts preserved, compiled in the 16th century before Christ, this condition is named the disease of the soul, a calamity born of the god's wrath. Egyptian doctors insisted leprosy was neither bacterial nor environmental, but a divine punishment for hidden transgressions. Picture Pharaoh Akhenaten, long revered as a living god on earth, now forced to bow before harsh public scrutiny. Commoners whispered, "He has offended the gods." This is retribution for his arrogance. The king, whose mere nods struck fear into courtiers, now faced unprecedented shame. Murmurs filled the palace halls. He must atone. He has lost divine favor. Not only Akhenaten suffered this fate, archaeologists have uncovered remains of a second royal figure, a nameless prince who bore the horrific scars of leprosy. His skeletal remains reveal eroded jawbones, a deeply sunken brow, and a misshapen jaw from chronic nerve infections. Though interred with full royal honors, His body was meticulously wrapped to conceal the impurity of his condition. This proves the court was willing to sacrifice truth itself to preserve the illusion of an invincible dynasty. A healthy pharaoh symbolized the kingdom's prosperity, plentiful harvests, the Nile's generous flooding, secure borders, all reflections of the monarch's well-being. Conversely, leprous ruler spelled disaster. Fields withered, armies faltered, enemies encroached, so the court erected a wall of silence. Rather than admit the king's illness, they claimed he was in deep meditation within the palace, on pilgrimage to sacred lands, or resting for health in a remote estate. Priests devised countless bizarre rituals, bathing the king in myrrh-infused perfumes, sprinkling ash of dry reeds over his body, inscribing protective glyphs upon his flesh, and reciting prayers without cease. Incense smoke billowed through the royal tomb. Drums and windpipes echoed through the night. Yet all these measures offered only spiritual comfort. They could not halt the leprous rot consuming his flesh. You can imagine Pharaoh Akhenaten lying upon a cold stone slab, his vacant eyes filled with despair, tears tracing hollow cheeks, while the chanting of sacred texts echoes like lamentations from beyond. These tales of royal leprosy reveal a dark truth. Even gilded power shrinks before the ravages of disease. The pharaoh's supposed immortality was merely an illusion woven from webs of deceit and enforced silence. Today, as the pyramids still stand sentinel along the Nile's banks, those dark secrets lie hidden in their depths, waiting to be unearthed. And this is only the beginning of our journey to uncover the curse of leprosy across time and space. Continuing from the gloomy shadows of the Egyptian pyramids, let us step onto the cold stone floors of Byzantine, where golden light serves only as a finely crafted mask to conceal festering wounds. Part 2. The Dark Empress of Byzantium. You glide through the gilded corridors of Constantinople in the year 1028. The heart of the empire once pulsing to the rhythm of triumphal drums and the echo of sacred chants. Here, amid jewel-encrusted domes and colossal mosaic walls, appears the figure of the second royal, Empress Zoe Porphyrogenita. The sovereign born in imperial purple, Porphyra, meaning purple, daughter of Emperor Romanos II and Empress Theophano, she was the younger sister of Princess Anna Porphyrogenita, and together with her elder sister Theodora, Zoe carried within her the royal bloodline that spanned 2 centuries, an unbroken legacy of both glory and peril. From childhood, Zoe was nurtured in palaces of gold and marble, steeped in ceremony and authority. Her mother, Theophano, rumoured to be of foreign birth, leveraged her beauty and cunning to elevate her husband Romanos II to the throne, inaugurating the splendid Macedonian dynasty. Her father, Romanos II, though he reigned only a few years, revived the empire's economy and culture. Zoe grew up in that atmosphere of power, praised for her full-moon beauty and skill in statecraft. Yet beneath layers of royal cloth and shimmering jewels, the birthmarks on her skin pale. Mottled patches like shards of broken glass became a grave secret. The court dared not acknowledge any medical diagnosis. They dismissed it as a common skin issue, or sensitive skin from imperial stress. Although later historians recorded that Zoe set up a wing of the palace as a cosmetics laboratory, meticulously blending perfumes, creams, and ointments. Many believed those efforts were not merely for beauty, but to hide the first signs of the dreadful disease leprosy. During her tumultuous reign, Zoe endured 2 sorrowful marriages. Her first husband, Romanos, the third Argyros, ascended the throne in the year 1028, but met a mysterious end in a flaming bath. Amid rumours of foul play or accident, in the year 1030, she remarried Michael IV Paphlagon, a commoner she had raised to the zenith of power. Yet, under Michael IV's rule, Zoe's health deteriorated, further numbness in her hands and feet, red blotches, rising and fading, and nerve damage that triggered wild fits of rage. The palace halls were filled with hushed whispers. Will that robe cloak the marks well enough? Or can that perfume disguise the blemishes? The imperial palace gradually became Zoe's private prison. Every step she took had to be calculated. Her mottled skin concealed by silk gloves and elaborately tailored heavy robes. In the flickering oil lamp light, one could picture her stirring a bowl of ointment, inhaling the rich scent of myrrh, and whispering to herself, "Though I wear a splendid crown upon my head, this body remains vulnerable, flesh and bone." In the official chronicles, it is recorded that Zoe adopted the third royal, Michael V, an orphan boy of peasant origin, and named him heir. Historians still debate, was this a shrewd political gambit to secure her lineage's claim, or a sign of impaired judgment? Many argue that nerve deterioration from leprosy made her increasingly distrustful, prone to erratic decisions driven by emotion. Night descended, and Constantinople lay silent, pierced only by wind through arched windows and distant temple bells. The imperial attendants carefully scattered incense throughout her chamber, shielding the empress from direct light. They cautioned one another, "Do not stare too closely at those patterned patches. Tell the public she is in prayer, not vanity." Each word, each gesture, was part of a performance to protect the dynasty's prestige before the populace and the court. Zoe lived to the age of 76, a remarkable lifespan when most commoners rarely passed 50. She died at a somber dawn, leaving the throne to her nephew, and the marks of her illness remained hidden in an inscribed sarcophagus. People wondered, was Empress Zoe Porphyrogenitor a brilliant ruler of unmatched acumen, or simply a tragic symbol of imperial power undone by disease? The answer now lies only in the silent pages of history, where her affliction is veiled beneath ornate patterns and the sworn loyalty of those around her. Though time may dim every glory, the darkness that gripped the Byzantine court waits still to be revealed, and the journey to uncover the curse of leprosy will lead us onward to other realms, where strength and sickness clash mercilessly. From the gloomy shadows of the Byzantine court, we step onto the sacred soil of Jerusalem, where the curse of leprosy not only ravages the body, but also dictates the fate of an entire kingdom. Part 3. The Leper King of Jerusalem. In the year 1174 at Jerusalem, the third royal figure, Baldwin IV, was formally crowned at the age of 13. His father was King Amalric, the first of Jerusalem, renowned for his campaigns in Egypt, and his mother was Princess Agnes of Courtenay, said to have brought noble Courtenay blood into the royal family. Baldwin also had a twin sister, Princess Sibylla, who would later become central to the struggle for power. From as early as 9 years old, the young prince had lost all sensation in his right arm, a sign of serious nerve damage recorded by Master William of Tyre in his chronicles, when Baldwin grasped a melting candle without uttering a cry. News of the leper's curse spread throughout the city. Despite the court's efforts to keep it secret, senior officials whispered to one another, "The prince suffers an incurable malady. Leprosy has become a divine curse." But Baldwin IV, unlike many leprous rulers who hid in darkness, chose a different path. He openly wore a silver mask to cover half his face, donned his crown with regal dignity, and advanced to the front lines with the spirit of a warrior. At only 16 springs, King Baldwin IV led his forces at the Battle of Mongisard in the year 1177. Before that, Saladin had threatened to overrun all of Jerusalem with his seasoned army. Though he could no longer feel the heat of his sword or the chill of his armor, the king still rode into battle, lance in hand, eyes alight with determination. The image of the masked king standing on the battlefield amid enemy ranks inspired his troops so fiercely that Saladin's army was forced into a crushing retreat. It is said that Baldwin IV regarded leprosy as a trial from the divine, and each ulcer, Each numb limb was for him a step towards spiritual purification on the road to the holy city. The court quickly recognized the political value of the brave leper king's image. They composed hymns, celebrating his unparalleled courage, carved Baldwin IV's likeness into palace reliefs, and skillfully used this victory to heal divisions among the barons. Soldiers, too, felt a newfound pride and unity. Around the campfires at night, tales of the leper king became a beacon of hope amid the dark trials of the Crusades. Yet publicizing his illness also sowed seeds of discord. Rival factions quietly probed for leverage, seeking to manipulate the young throne. Baldwin's sister, Princess Sibylla, together with her husband Guy of Lusignan, exploited her brother's fame to rally supporters. They deftly forged alliances, arguing that Baldwin IV's reign could not last, and that the realm needed a healthier heir to safeguard the kingdom. When Baldwin died at the age of 24, the rifts ran so deep that civil war erupted, enabling Saladin to besiege and capture Jerusalem in the year 1187. The life of Baldwin IV stands as a tragic testament. He was a king who fought valiantly on the battlefield while battling an enemy within his own flesh. Each leprous wound served as a reminder that, however well the crown might conceal it, the divine could test any ruler, and human frailty remains vulnerable to fate's merciless hand. Baldwin IV's story is more than the chronicle of a gifted monarch. It is proof of the unforgiving struggle between power and disease, a tragedy etched forever into the legend of the Crusades. Continuing the tragedy of the leper king, we now turn to the turbulent succession drama at the Jerusalem court, where power and disease intertwine in a maelstrom of ambition. The fourth royal figure, Princess Sibylla. Remember that Sibylla was born in the year 1162, the youngest child of King Amalric I and Queen Agnes of Courtenay, and the twin sister of Baldwin IV. From her earliest years, she was raised amid the palace libraries, under the shadow of her father, the conqueror of Egypt, and her mother, a woman of political acumen from the noble Courtenay line. Alongside her sister Anna and her brother Baldwin, Sibylla absorbed the grandeur of Byzantine ceremony and mastered the arts of diplomacy and courtly intrigue. The death of Baldwin IV created a power vacuum unmatched in living memory. Immediately, noble factions, military commanders, and vested interests surrounded the royal palace, vying for the regency of the Holy Kingdom. Amid that whirlpool of ambition, Princess Sibylla became the focal point of every negotiation. She who carried the imperial heritage and held the promise of the crown was forced to broker her own fate and that of her realm. First, Sibylla married William of Montferrat, a Piedmontese nobleman from northern Italy, believed to be a strong military ally with vast resources. The marriage took place in the year 1180. Amid glowing praise from European aristocracy, only 11 months later, Prince Baldwin V was born, expected to succeed his brother on the throne. Yet political factions remained deeply divided. The arson party controlled the old citadel, while the European barons backed the vassal forces. When William of Montferrat died under mysterious circumstances, Jerusalem faced a succession crisis. Court conspiracy whispered that the Holy Cross might be broken and the kingdom fall to Islamic enemies. Under that pressure, Sibylla was compelled to accept a second marriage to Guy of Lusignan, a young French noble born in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, but lacking military experience. This decision enraged many of Sibylla's supporters who had hoped for a stronger protector. Guy had no notable achievements, only his noble lineage to vouch for his claim. Each of Sibylla's marriages was a pact of tears and calculation. She resolutely placed the kingdom's interests above personal feelings and forced the court to recognize Guy as co-ruler. In return, Guy pledged to uphold the throne for her son Baldwin V and maintain internal stability. Secret councils between military leaders, senators, and royal advisors took place behind closed doors. Part political convention, part ruthless battle of wits. Yet the power Guy wielded led directly to tragedy. In the year 1187, under Guy's command, the Jerusalem army suffered a catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Hattin. The citadel fell. Trusted commanders were captured or killed, and Sibylla witnessed her husband's shattered forces retreat across the parched fields near the Sea of Galilee. The bitter lesson of the Crusader state's worst rout shattered all faith in royal leadership. Not only did Jerusalem lose its military strength, but Sibylla lost her spiritual anchor as well. Prince Baldwin V, her son by William of Montferrat, died at the age of 3, extinguishing the final hope for the dynasty. The proud princess, once hailed as a future queen, now beheld her only child as a small grave in the palace gardens. Her anguished cries echoed through the silent halls as her attendants stood helpless before such cruel fate. The tragedy of Princess Sibylla was not merely the loss of a kingdom, but the ultimate sorrow of a mother and a solitary ruler. She, once celebrated as a talented sovereign-in-waiting, became a lonely queen, drifting through the empty corridors of her palace. Her husband lay imprisoned, heir son dead, and her lineage teetered on the brink of oblivion. Only 1 year after the catastrophe, Sibylla passed away, leaving an empty throne, palace walls draped in mourning, and a court filled with whispers. This is the consequence of the leper's curse. Baldwin IV's death sowed the seeds of this collapse. This period clearly demonstrates that leprosy was not only a personal scourge, but also the spark that ignited a ruthless struggle for power. Sibylla's marriage to Guy of Lusignan was the product of a kingdom in decay, where once glorious heritage clashed painfully with a bleak reality. And as Jerusalem's final days fell like a closing curtain, we recognize that power and disease march hand in hand, weaving the destinies of those who wear crowns into chapters of tears and longing. Continuing the tragedies of the leper king and the princess's power struggle, we now return to the figure of a woman who was both the heart and mind of Jerusalem's royalty, one who witnessed her son's suffering and bore the weight of an entire kingdom on her shoulders. Part 5. The Mother of the Kingdom, Queen Melisende. Recall that during the reign of Baldwin IV, by the throne stood the 5th royal figure, Queen Melisende. She was born in the year 1134, the daughter of Count Fulk V of Anjou and Princess Ehrenberg of Maine, of the noble Western line. In her youth, Melisende was sent to France to study Latin, royal ceremony, and the art of politics at the court of Blois, one of the most powerful centres in Europe. In the year 1149, she married King Fulk of Jerusalem, who had just ascended following the death of Baldwin I, ushering in the Angevin era for the Crusader kingdom. From her earliest days as queen, Melisende left an indelible mark. She was the first woman to serve as regent when her husband was away on campaign, managing court affairs, appointing officials, and maintaining diplomatic relations with Byzantium and Fatimid Egypt. When Baldwin IV ascended the throne in the year 1174 at just 13 years old, Melisende became the true guardian of the realm, a figure both authoritative and sorrowful, as she witnessed her son bear the curse of leprosy. As soon as news of Baldwin's leprosy broke within the inner court, Melisende ordered the opening of an apothecary and medical library, sending physicians to scour distant lands for herbs from India and Persia, while also inviting Muslim healers to recite protective charms. Each morning, she carefully monitored her son's pulse and the progression of his lesions, recording every detail in a private journal, its pages still redolent with the scent of eucalyptus and mugwort. She once commanded trials of ointments made with crushed pearls and mountain honey, Yet these remedies only masked symptoms and could not cure the root of his affliction. Whenever Melisenda saw Baldwin's gaunt face and eyes dimmed by pain, she would quietly turn away, brush away her tears, and step onto the royal dais to proclaim, "Rest assured, the king is merely in a period of recovery." Those words rang through the gilded throne room, concealing a world of anguish. Even the highest nobles, aware of the crisis unfolding behind palace walls, dared not speak out. For Queen Melisenda was not merely a consort, but a symbol of steadfastness, a mother of iron amid despair. Her concealment of the truth was not only political strategy, but also an unbearable psychological burden. She faced pressure from military commanders seeking to seize control, feuds between Western Crusaders and native forces, and formal condemnation by the Roman Church for employing Muslim sorcerers. Each day, she weighed therapies for her son while outside the court. Instability reigned, royal gossip ran rampant, soldiers whispered doubts, and the threat of Saladin's armies loomed just beyond the city gates. Meanwhile, Queen Melisenda did not neglect her charitable duties. She commissioned the construction of the Al-Maluf hospital near the old city wall, providing care for the poor and establishing leprosaria across the borderlands. Physicians of the Alexandrian order were invited to serve, tending patients under olive trees with the Mediterranean breeze at their backs. This endeavour was not only an act of piety, but also a means to reassure the populace and soothe fears surrounding the dreaded, stigmatized disease. Yet Melisenda's own health and spirit waned. Each night, after the council chambers fell silent, she would slip into the infirmary, sit by her son's bedside, lay her hand upon his lesions, and whisper, "Be strong, my dearest. Mother will never abandon you." As the candle's flame guttered and died, darkness reigned in that quiet room, broken only by their soft breaths and the shared beating of mother and son's hearts. In the year 1161, Queen Melisenda passed away at the age of 27, a remarkable lifespan by the standards of her time. She left a kingdom teetering on the edge after her death. The throne passed to Baldwin V, followed by the rule of Guy of Lusignan and the ensuing turmoil. Jerusalem plunged into chaos. The court lost its protector, the soldiers their morale, and Saladin saw opportunity in the kingdom's unravelling. Melisenda's departure marked the beginning of a new tragedy, not only the succession conflicts of Princess Sibylla, but also the deeper consequences of the leprosy curse that had sown division within the royal family. She who sacrificed both her heart and her resolve for her son and her realm became living proof that leprosy was not merely a personal affliction, but the tinder that ignited further historical catastrophes. And our journey to uncover the curse of leprosy continues, leading us to the final ruins of the Kingdom of Jerusalem and the dynasties that followed, where power and disease forever walk hand in hand in the whirlpool of ambition. Part 6. The Mad Queen of Castile, Princess Juana. Continuing the mournful chapters of Jerusalem, we turn our gaze westward to the Iberian Peninsula, where the newly united realm of Spain under Ferdinand and Isabella was basking in its golden age. Amid this flourishing era emerges the figure of the sixth royal figure, Princess Juana. Later dubbed Juana la Loca, Juana the Mad Queen. Juana, born in the year 1401, was the second child of King Ferdinand, the first of Aragon, and Queen Isabella, the second of Castile. She grew up alongside her brother, Prince John, her elder sister. Princess Isabella, who became the wife of King Manuel II of Portugal, and her youngest sister, Princess Maria, later Duchess of Savoy. As a girl, Juana was educated in the Alhambra Palace at Granada. Mastering both Latin and Old Castilian, and steeped in royal ceremony and diplomatic strategy, her beauty and intellect astonished European ambassadors. Yet even in her youth, Juana exhibited troubling physical signs. Her skin would sometimes show dark patches, areas of pallid discoloration, resembling shards of broken glass. And her hands and feet occasionally tingled, for no apparent reason. To protect the family's prestige, the court physicians diagnosed these symptoms as nervous exhaustion or postpartum depression, though Juana had not yet married, and prescribed standard tonic potions and common herbal remedies. At the age of 17, Juana married Prince Philip the Handsome of Burgundy, the eldest son of the Habsburgs. Their union was celebrated as the joining of two of Europe's most powerful dynasties, but fate struck suddenly and cruelly in the year 1412. Philip died unexpectedly, whether from plague or an unrecorded accident remains uncertain. The devastating news shattered Juana. Her profound grief awakened a resolute spirit within her. Juana insisted that her husband's coffin be transported throughout the kingdom in a grief procession spanning 3,000 kilometers by carriage. A journey chronicled in history as the mourning pilgrimage. She clung to the black velvet-draped casket as her guards carried it through town after town, allowing subjects to pay their respects and pray. What seemed madness to some was a testament to her unyielding will. Juana believed only by honoring Philip's soul in this way could she and the realm find peace. Yet few knew that during this pilgrimage, Juana's own symptoms worsened. She complained of burning pain at her fingertips, numbness in her toes, and widening patches of discolored skin. Modern medical experts suggest these signs align with the early stages of leprosy, peripheral nerve damage, loss of sensation, and insidious lesion formation. The Bourbon-Courtenay family moved swiftly to conceal every trace. They feared that a public admission of leprosy would disgrace the crown and provide a pretext for neighboring powers to encroach. As a result, Juana not only lost her husband, but also her authority. She was stripped of her regency and confined to the royal residence at Tordesillas. Each time she petitioned to return to Madrid to resume governance. Officials replied, "The Queen is in convalescence." The tragedy of Princess Juana extended far beyond her personal loss. She became a pawn in a courtly conspiracy, labelled mad, to obscure the true cause. Her illness and power was transferred first to her brother and then to her son, Charles II, who was appointed nominal king while still a child. Under the moniker Juana la Loca, posterity often focuses on her eccentric acts. Paintings depict her wandering beside her husband's coffin, weeping day and night. Yet behind those images lay a woman whose dignity had been ravaged by disease and whose family was willing to erase her from power to preserve the throne. Her weary steps in that mournful procession carried not only her grief, but also the seed of a curse. Leprosy not only ravaged her flesh, but was wielded as a tool to strip her of the crown. Juana died at Tordesillas in the year 1466, at the age of 65, a remarkable lifespan in an age of war and plague. Though she played no further role in the bloody succession struggles, the legend of the Mad Queen endures as a poignant reminder. Power and disease often walk hand in hand, and the greatest threat to a monarch may lie not on the battlefield, but within their own flesh. And so our journey to unearth the curse of leprosy continues, as we leave behind the castles of Spain and venture on to other dynasties, where history and medicine intersect to shape unforgettable tragedies. Part 7. The mysterious mark of the farmer king of Portugal, King Dinis. Continuing our journey across the Iberian Peninsula, we now arrive at the 13th and 14th century court of Portugal, under the 7th royal figure, King Dinis, the farmer king, celebrated for his stubborn wit, his patronage of poetry, and his public works constructing bridges, founding the University of Coimbra, and presiding over a time of peace and prosperity. His reign nonetheless bears a curious late-life shadow. In his final years, the chronicles note that King Dinis withdrew increasingly from public life. Observers remarked that his once rosy complexion turned pale, and that his private chambers grew ever more secluded. Official histories attribute his retreat to a desire for contemplation and the graceful delegation of authority to his heir, his son Afonso. Yet modern scholars suggest a more insidious cause, the onset of leprosy, silently ravaging his nerves and soft tissues. Taught possède royal dignity. The court never acknowledged any specific ailment. Instead, they proclaimed that the king was devoting himself to scholarly pursuits and living in quiet retirement as befitted his advancing years. This deliberate silence only fueled further rumour. Mimicking other great powers of the age, Dinis's courtiers fashioned a benevolent image of their sovereign, a peacemaker king, a scholarly hermit who chose the life of the mind over courtly intrigue. Poets at court composed odes to the monarch who relinquished thrones to sow seeds of knowledge, turning his absence from governance into an act of wisdom. Yet behind the flattering verses lay a deeper dread that the true motive for his seclusion was to conceal the telltale signs of leprosy. When King Dinis finally passed away, the unity he had maintained dissolved almost at once. His sons, Afonso and Pedro, plunged into bitter rivalry over succession. This fracturing of power recalled the leprous king's call that had doomed previous realms, demonstrating once more how the hidden spectre of illness can ignite political turmoil. From Dinis's story, we learn that leprosy was not merely a private affliction, but a political fault line half hidden behind propaganda, half exploited as a rationale for gentle succession or delegation of civic duties. Few chroniclers recognize that these public explanations were less acts of magnanimity than measures to safeguard the crown before the disease's truth could emerge. Thus, the legacy of King Dinis, the farmer king, endures as a cautionary tale. Even prosperity and learning cannot fully shield a ruler or a realm from the disruptive power of disease, especially when that illness becomes a secret weapon in the struggle for power. Part 8. Empress Theodora, the woman hidden in Byzantine darkness. Continuing the tragedies and power struggles of Europe's royal courts, we return to Constantinople. But in a later era, around the mid-14th century, there, amid the dim silver thrones of a waning Byzantine empire, emerges the eighth royal figure, Empress Theodora Paleologina, a woman who almost vanished from the chronicles, quietly concealed behind carved arches and golden mosaics. Theodora was born in the year 1325, the daughter of Emperor Michael IX and Empress Rita of Armenia, carrying the bloodlines of both Byzantine and Armenian nobility. In her youth, she was raised in the Blakani Palace, renowned for its solemn candlelit ceremonies and the echo of chanting monks from the nearby monastery. She had an elder sister, Princess Anna, and a younger brother, Prince Andronikos, both of whom died young in plague outbreaks, leaving Theodora with the heavy burden of her family's legacy. When she married Emperor Andronikos III in the year 1336, Theodora was not yet 11 years old. Their union was intended to cement political alliances between two branches of the Paleologos dynasty, but it also brought countless palace intrigues. Over the following decades, she gradually withdrew from the grand ceremonies and appeared publicly only on the most significant religious holidays. The chronicles merely note her presence at the Feast of the Holy Cross, yet never praise her beauty or demeanour, a remarkable omission for a Byzantine empress, since appearance was typically exalted as a symbol of divine authority. Historians believe that the true cause lay in a secret illness, leprosy. Scholars point to subtle clues in the sparse record. Her hands were always hidden within voluminous sleeves or velvet gloves, her face covered by a thin veil or hood under the pretext of strict adherence to monastic protocol or devotional austerities. The convents she frequented, such as Kyriotissa and Pamakaristos, were rumoured not only to be her places of prayer, but also secret infirmaries where court physicians and monks tended her festering ulcers and neuropathic pains. The empire was in decline. Civil wars raged, the Ottoman Turks besieged its borders, and the economy teetered. Every sign of Theodora's public absence became ammunition for the opposition. They accused Emperor Andronikos III of ineptitude, indulging in luxury banquets, while he and his empress lacked the strength to guide the empire. The silence surrounding her health only deepened rumors and personal attacks. She shirks her duties at court. Her piety is a pretext to evade responsibility. In reality, the palace's network of silence was meticulously maintained. The imperial physicians, many of whom were Syrian and Greek specialists, secretly prepared ointments with pine resin and charcoal powder infused in pungent oils. Monastic attendants chanted healing psalms day and night. Loyal ladies-in-waiting permitted only a chosen few to see Theodora. All strangers were blocked at the gates or escorted to secluded quarters. Empress Theodora passed away in the year 1346. At only 41 years of age, leaving the court in stunned bewilderment. The official histories tersely describe her as a gentle, virtuous woman, praising charitable works such as her endowment to aid the poor at the Hagia Sophia and the founding of pious fraternities. Yet such flowery language served only as a veil over a darker truth. Leprosy spares neither empress nor commoner. When Theodora died, her son, Emperor John V, ascended the throne but faced immediate challenges and doubts from within the imperial family. The spectre of disease continued to haunt the empire, widening factional rifts and pushing Byzantine ever closer to collapse. The story of Empress Theodora Paleologina demonstrates that even in Constantinople's final golden era, illness could quietly destroy those regarded as embodiments of divine power. And silence in the shadows was the fragile prop sustaining the throne against the storms of history. And so our journey to uncover the curse of leprosy continues across splendorous and shadow dynasties alike, where power and disease forever walk hand in hand through the tragic chapters of humanity. Part 9. The Forgotten Viking King, King Ragnvald. Continuing from the somber tales of the Byzantine court, we turn north to Scandinavia in the 12th century. When Viking rule remained fragmented, yet legendary for its bold warriors, in an ancient saga, there is mention of the ninth royal figure, King Ragnvald of the Kingdom of Norway, who reigned from the year 1220 to the year 1265, a span of 25 years, marked by both glory and mystery. Ragnvald was born into Norway's royal family. The son of Prince Einar and Princess Sigrid of Orkney, he grew up amidst feasts at Bergen Castle, trained in wielding the battle-axe and taming wild horses alongside his sister Astrid and his younger brother Harold. Upon his accession at the age of 20, King Ragnvald swiftly asserted his authority through a series of coastal raids against Celtic shores and by recruiting the fiercest seafarers. Yet in the final years of his reign, his complexion began to pale, his skin turning ashen, as if drained of life. The sagas record that during a naval engagement against invaders in the year 1235, he could no longer feel the vibration of his axe handle, causing his sword to splinter the moment it struck enemy armor. The paralysis of his fingers and toes shocked his warriors, who had never seen a once formidable king falter mid-battle. The Norwegian court, like many royal houses, concealed his ailment by commissioning stone carvers to depict Ragnvald with rippling muscles and a raised axe aboard a dragon ship cutting through stormy seas. All records of his nerve injuries were erased, leaving only incomplete runestones around Skånefjord and Lofoten. In a culture that revered physical strength, a king afflicted with leprosy was viewed as evidence of divine displeasure. The people believed that the frost gods had turned away, unbalancing the kingdom. Yet the fragmentary carvings and half-told sagas preserved an allegory behind the triumphant war drums, lay a ruler masking his suffering to sustain his realm's glory. After 25 years on the throne, King Ragnvald passed away peacefully, leaving Norway to confront succession disputes among regional chieftains. His story reminds us of a harsh truth. Even the mightiest warriors can be undone by the body's relentless curse. Continuing from the saga of the Viking king, Ragnvald, we now turn eastward to the dim corridors of the Kremlin. where Russia's 16th century court trembled before the ragged figure of the 10th royal figure, Tsar Ivan IV, commonly known as Ivan the Terrible. Part 10: Ivan the Terrible and the Curse of Leprosy. Leaving behind the Norse myths of the far north, we arrive in golden but shadowed Russia, where the throne was shrouded in fear and oppression. Under the rule of the 10th royal figure, Tsar Ivan IV, often called Ivan the Terrible, Russia endured its darkest era. He was born in the year 1540, the son of Tsar Vasily III and Empress Elena Glinskaya. When he ascended the throne in the year 1556 at the age of 13, Ivan shouldered the immense duty of unifying the vast realm. Ivan's father, Tsar Vasily III, had expanded Russia's borders, while his mother, Elena Glinskaya, was said to possess noble Lithuanian blood. Together with his younger brother, Yuri, Ivan was raised in the Dimitrov Palace, where power and intrigue were ever present. Upon their father's death, Ivan and his brother fell under the control of regents, enduring a turbulent childhood marked by ruthless factional struggles beneath his imperial robes. Legend held that Ivan concealed a frail, distorted body, a gaunt, hollowed face, a sunken nose, and foul breath. His private life was cloaked in mystery, but his reputation for brutality was universally feared. In the year 1560, he established the Oprichnina, a secret police force that terrorized his own people, carrying out a series of bloody purges across the land. Yet a horrifying revelation emerged from Soviet anthropological digs in the 1930s. Scientists exhumed Ivan's remains and found that his nasal bones had deteriorated and his jaw was deformed, changes consistent with advanced stage leprosy. Rather than admit this, the court and the Orthodox Church propagated a diagnosis of syphilis, a less taboo disease to avoid the stigma of the leprous curse. If leprosy was indeed the cause, it helps explain why Ivan repeatedly ordered the execution of his own son, Tsarevich Ivan V, to the horror of his family. Leprosy ravaged not only flesh and nerves, but also provoked unpredictable fits of rage and mental disturbance. The fusion of religious superstition with fear of physical deformity drove Ivan's fury to new extremes. Behind the cold walls of the Oprichnina, Ivan donned his blackened armor and wielded a scepter carved like a monstrous hand, trampling all resistance within the Kremlin. Yet few knew that beneath his terrifying facade, he struggled to conceal a weakening, diseased body. Official portraits erased every hint of his affliction, presenting only an inviolable, fearsome Tsar. Ivan the Terrible's cruelty was hailed as an expression of supreme power, but it also embodied the tragedy of a man cursed by leprosy when society trembles. Autocracy reigns. Destruction spreads not only by the sword, but through the emperor's tormented mind. He closed his life in the year 1588, on a somber dawn, leaving the throne to Tsar Alexis II and ushering in a new wave of chaos. Ivan passed away, yet the secret of his leprosy, never publicly acknowledged, still hung over the Kremlin's shadows, reminding posterity that unchecked power can descend into terror when the body can no longer withstand the weight of command. The story of Tsar Ivan IV, the Terrible, stands as the final testament that leprosy was not only a private scourge, but also a dark force, igniting collective dread, transforming corridors of power into stages for violence and massacre. And though history cloaked his deeds in legend and triumph, the curse of leprosy lingered behind his every majestic step, awaiting the light of truth to reveal its full horror. Thus, we have reviewed 10 kings and queens, from the pyramids of Egypt to the shadowed halls of the Kremlin, each burdened by the haunting curse of leprosy. Yet our journey does not end here. There remain 4 more royal figures, each carrying their own tale of power, illness, and concealment across other dynasties from the Eastern empires to early modern Europe. Let us proceed to uncover the final four royal tragedies, where leprosy continues to cast its darkness and test the courage of those who wear the crown. And after tracing the tragedy of Tsar Ivan, the terrible shrouded in the Kremlin's darkness, we turn westward once more to the rolling plains of medieval France to meet a king no less enigmatic beneath his cloak of piety. Part 11. The 11th royal figure. Louis VII. That Louis VII was born in the year 1120, the firstborn son of King Louis VI, the fighter of the English and Queen Adelaide of Maurienne, carrying the mighty bloodline of the Capetians. He had a sister, Princess Constance, and several younger siblings who died in infancy, casting a pall of mourning from his earliest years. When his father died in the year 1137, Louis was only 13 years old when he took the crown, an adolescent monarch burdened with steering a realm beset on one side by England and on the other by the demands of the Roman Church. Louis VII was celebrated as a devout ruler. He led the Second Crusade, deploying his forces to the Holy Land with unwavering zeal, enjoying the full support of Pope Eugene II. Chroniclers praised him as the virtuous king, bearing the cross upon his chest. Yet few realized that beneath that mantle of sanctity, Louis endured relentless bouts of illness. In civil annals one finds only fleeting mentions. The king was stricken by high fevers, sweating like rain. His visage turned ashen, or he withdrew to the abbey for weeks of prayer and repose, his nerves taxed beyond endurance. However, modern medical historians assert that these very symptoms align with the late stages of leprosy: gradual loss of sensation in fingertips and toes, chronic, slow-healing ulcers that tortured his joints, a body gaunt and perpetually fatigued. In a society where power and prestige defined worth, the French crown could not admit that its sovereign suffered from the era's most reviled malady. Thus, the Capetian court artfully concealed every sign. Whenever Louis left the battlefield or journeyed to a council, the official bulletin read, "The king is in retreat at the Abbey of Saint-Denis for devotions," or "He chooses to pray in silence to renew his spiritual strength." Those crippling joint pains were recast, not as disease but as divine trials, reinforcing among the populace the notion that such suffering was proof of their king's unshakable faith. During his conflicts with England, when Henry II of England repeatedly invaded Normandy and Aquitaine, Louis VII likewise used extended stays in monastic seclusion as a signal to the church that he prized piety above war. He reformed ecclesiastical laws, punished abuses of canon law severely, then swiftly departed court to visit convents, creating the legend that he prayed more than he drew his sword, while obscuring the real, bodily cause. When Louis died in the year 1144, before reaching the age of 50, rumours held that he expired from exhaustion after his pilgrimages, or succumbed to a terrible bout of malaria. By avoiding any mention of leprosy, the royal council sidestepped scandal. Even the episcopal hierarchy dared not reveal the truth, for fear of tarnishing the holy king image cherished across Christendom. Looking back on the Capetian era under Louis VII, historians highlight grand marriage alliances, not least his union with Eleanor of Aquitaine, who later married King Henry, the Second Crusade, and his sweeping reforms of religious law. Yet beneath those stirring chapters lay an unspoken dread. A leprous king could lose church support, fracture noble alliances, and spark a succession crisis. And that is only the tip of the iceberg. The story of Louis VII shows how, behind a veneer of sanctity, a disease like leprosy was not merely a personal affliction, but a latent threat to an entire dynasty, where faith shone so brightly it overshadowed harsh truths, and royal secrets were buried in the quiet chambers of cloistered abbeys. And after uncovering the discreet life of Louis VII among those shadowed abbeys, we now sweep back north to late 19th century Russia to meet a hidden rose amid silken secrets. Part 12. The 12th royal figure, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna. Maria Pavlovna was born in the year 1854. She was the granddaughter of Tsar Nicholas I and the eldest daughter of Grand Duke Konstantin Nikolaevich and Grand Duchess Alexandra of Saxe-Altenburg. She had a younger brother, Grand Duke Vladimir Konstantinovich, and a younger sister, Grand Duchess Olga Konstantinovna. All three were raised in the magnificent Winter Palace of St. Petersburg. From her earliest years, Maria was trained in lavish court balls and rigorous Romanov protocol, praised for her graceful beauty and fluency in English, French, and Russian. Yet beneath that brocade cloak, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna frequently underwent treatment in the neurology chamber beside the 4th floor, where imperial physicians set up a sick bed and prescribed sedative ointment blended with sulfur to apply to her skin rashes. In hastily scrawled letter preserved at the Winter Palace Library, a lady-in-waiting confided, "The princess's skin shows brown spots, and her hands tremble and go numb whenever the wind shifts." But the court censor swiftly removed those lines before any news could spread. Scattered medical records in the palace archives reveal that Maria Pavlovna often slept in a small isolation tent within her private quarters. Separated from the guests attending court banquets, the Royal Pharmacopoeia states, on day 1 of treatment, apply sulfur ointment. On day 5, soak the feet in a mineral salt basin. In week 2, undergo convalescence at Smolny Convent. The family labelled her as highly sensitive, prone to psychological trauma, to explain her months of absence from court festivities, advising minimize large gatherings and avoid harsh lights. However, in secret, Maria's private physicians and a handful of trusted court attendants whispered among themselves that she was showing early signs of leprosy, Your Highness. When she is on her feet too long, patches of skin begin to flake, and there is a faint scar on her nasal wing, a vestige of cartilage destroyed. One doctor recorded in a confidential journal, it was not only her skin. The numbing in her finger joints made it impossible for her to hold a teacup for more than a few moments, forcing her to use a small spoon to pour. The Romanov court's silence turned Maria's illness into a state secret. From the opulent Winter Palace to the fur-draped halls, no one dared utter the name of a disease that might shame the dynasty. Private newspapers, when reporting on Grand Duchess Pavlovna, merely described her as introspective and pensive, fond of reading meditation texts and keeping a journal of poetry, while outside, rumours circulated that she often withdraws to the winter gardens. When Maria Pavlovna neared her 40th year, she formally left the palace for a small country residence in the Tsarskoye Selo suburbs. Among pear orchards and ice-bound lakes, it is said she appeared only sporadically at spring balls, her face etched with sorrow. When she finally passed away, in the year 1901, at the age of 57, the brief obituary read, "The Grand Duchess has peacefully departed after extended convalescence." Not a single mention of leprosy appeared, leaving posterity to remember her merely as a wistful, deeply introspective woman. No one denied Maria Pavlovna's cultural patronage. She sponsored art exhibitions and championed Russian ballet, but few recognized that behind her regal grace lay a body slowly failing. The Neva River still flowed. The imperial dome still gleamed. Yet memories of the nights she lay in her isolation tent, by the dim candlelight, trembling as she pulled silk gloves over her wounds, remained an unspoken secret. The story of Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna shows that in an empire where flawlessness was a symbol of power, illness had to be silenced beneath all splendor. Leprosy was not only physical torment, but also a spectre destroying the spirit, forcing the court to establish neurology chambers and meditation libraries to conceal the truth. When her attendants stepped out from the convalescent quarters into the brilliance of court life, they carried with them the heavy secret of a princess cursed by disease. And so, our journey to unearth the curse of leprosy in these great dynasties continues, as every crowned individual bears their own painful tale of power, silence, and the fragility of the human heart. just having stepped beyond the cold golden walls of the Romanov court. Our spiritual voyage now sweeps us southward to the rugged Andes, where a sun-worshipping empire crumbled beneath the twin storms of invasion and disease. Part 13. The 13th royal figure, Atahualpa of the Inca Empire. Atahualpa was born around the year 1560, the son of Emperor Huayna Capac and Empress Mama Rahua Oclo. He had a half-brother named Huascar, and within the Inca royal family young Atahualpa quickly proved his leadership in the fierce succession struggles that followed Huayna Capac's death. Upon his accession, he became the final sovereign of the mighty Inca realm, ruling over the vast highlands around Lake Titicaca and beneath the slopes of the Golden Mountains. Beneath the sacred sun, Atahualpa's people revered him as the living embodiment of Inti, the sun god. Yet that very faith could not conceal the invisible scourge spreading through every Andean community. When Francisco Pizarro and his Spanish expedition first set foot on these shores, they carried with them an unseen enemy, smallpox. Entire villages of Incas fell, and Atahualpa himself did not escape the earliest symptoms. Chroniclers in Pizarro's retinue recorded the Inca emperor suffering relentless fevers, his skin turning ashen, like cold ash, his limbs swelling and breaking out in crimson. Maddening rashes. Spanish translators even noted Atahualpa would drift into delirium, his eyes glassy, hard to rouse at night. Yet amidst a populace thrown into panic by the epidemic, Inca interpreters and courtiers hurried to conceal the sovereign's illness. When Pizarro first encountered Atahualpa at Cajamarca, he described the emperor as handsome as a noblewoman, lounging serenely during the welcome ceremony, though no one noticed the slight tremor in his grasp of the sacred cup. Thanks to the devotion of his people, Inca officials kept his condition secret, allowing the conquistadors to believe Atahualpa remained full of vigor, a carefully staged political drama designed to prevent unrest and preserve faith in the sun. Emperor Atahualpa was then discreetly detained within the fortress. But Pizarro did not immediately execute him. Instead, the Spaniards seized his captive's authority as leverage, demanding an immense ransom of gold and silver. In desperate submission, the Incas piled treasure upon treasure until every storehouse lay empty. Even when Pizarro accepted the ransom, Atahualpa remained imprisoned and was ultimately executed in a sham trial by the Bible box, a proceeding that was both political theatre and a grim testament to religious power. Under the shadow of death, no one dared record that Atahualpa suffered from leprosy or from similar lesions caused by the Incas' lack of immunity to European diseases, but prolonging his life to extort gold and then kill him, stripped bare the brutal strength of colonial rule. All gold in the empire, though once the symbol of divine favor and earthly wealth, could not mask his numb, agonizing body, nor rescue the last Inca emperor from his tragic fate. Atahualpa's story tugs at the heart once worshipped as the sun incarnate. He became a victim of merciless disease and a ruthless political scheme. Piles of gold littered the palace floors, once a sign of power and prosperity. Yet before the emperor's suffering, it turned to mere pyrite, powerless against the ravages of his body and the inexorable fate awaiting him. And so our journey to trace the curse of leprosy or its kin, the devastating imported diseases through dazzling and darkened dynasties, continues. The first 10 royals from Egypt to Russia, followed by the next 2 across Europe, and now this 13th figure in the Americas, all remind us that no matter how brilliant their reigns, crowned heads must ultimately confront the frailty of the flesh, and that disease remains history's cruelest conqueror. And so, after our poignant journey with Atahualpa across the Andes, we return to Asia, setting foot in the land of the rising sun to encounter a hidden rose beneath Buddhist splendor and imperial power. Part 14. The 14th royal figure, Japan, Empress Komyo. Remember that Empress Komyo was born in the year 772 of the Tenpyo era. She was the daughter of Prince Fujiwara, Nagate and Princess E of the powerful Fujiwara clan. Her elder brother was Prince Fujiwara Toyonari, and her younger sister was Princess Seishi. Both grew up alongside her in the magnificent court at Nara, where ritual and Buddhist study reigned supreme from her earliest years. Komyo was trained within the imperial household. She studied Buddhist scriptures, practiced writing Chinese characters, and joined the ranks of female attendants overseeing grand Buddhist ceremonies. In the year 73, she married Emperor Shomu, the seventh sovereign of the Nara dynasty himself, renowned as a devout Buddhist, the builder of Todaiji Temple, and numerous medicine pagodas to heal suffering souls. Together they had 2 children, Crown Prince Joki later, Emperor Shomu II, and Princess Fuwa, hailed as the future hope of the imperial line, yet amid chronicles celebrating the merciful empress. Like Mogollon, a few noted the faint signs hidden beneath Komyo's graceful form. In the great temple records, she is described as carrying a large folding fan to conceal her face, wearing a broad straw hat, and occasionally taking temporary vows at secluded monks' retreats explained as deeper study, but in truth a private recuperation. Texts such as the Nihon Koki and Shoku Nihongi mention that Komyo fell gravely ill after giving birth to her first son. Adopting a strict vegetarian diet of plain rice and herbal decoctions, yet offer no further detail. According to secret monastic notes, she endured severe weight loss and developed mottled patches upon her skin, signs characteristic of leprosy, accompanied by numbness in her toes and fingertips. Priests tending her at Hokiji and Horyu-ji temples recorded privately whenever the wind blows cold. Her Majesty's hands tremble, and her feet grow numb as though encased in ice. These journals, however, were swiftly seized by the Nara court, permitting only the official version that she was undergoing austere spiritual training. Komyo's illness was further concealed in the rite of healing at Nigatsudo. She led ceremonies of purging disease in which leprosy sufferers were ritually washed with sacred water, symbolizing the triumph of compassion over affliction. To the populace, these were miraculous interventions by the Buddha. Behind the scenes, they served as Komyo's own means of confronting and purifying her hidden wounds. The Nara court enforced strict controls over imperial image. Every hint of royal frailty was suppressed by lavish eulogies of unbroken virtue, and by nobles offering lotus blossoms in prayer for her recovery. Legend held that one night Maitreya himself appeared, laying a hand upon Komyo's brow to heal her skin. But this too was likely a crafted narrative to obscure her medical ordeal. Empress Komyo passed away in the year 185. At the age of 59, a remarkable span in an age beset by epidemics and natural disasters. In her will, she entrusted Todaiji with continuing care for those with leprosy, and images of her in brocade robes, holding a bowl of sacred water, became icons of her boundless charity. Yet the memory of her shadowed face beneath a straw hat, the silk gloves that hid her lesions, remains a secret, never spoken aloud. The story of Empress Komyo teaches us that beneath gilded canopies lay a woman bearing the mark of illness. Yet she drew upon Buddhist faith and imperial authority, both to conceal her suffering and to wield compassion as her weapon. From Nara to the present, the stain of leprosy within the Japanese court has been covered by legend and scripture, but the silhouette of a leprous empress still lingers by temple walls, heard only in the tolling of bells and the whisper of midnight breezes. And so, the saga of the leprosy curse across illustrious dynasties continues, traversing continents from Egypt to Japan, proving that no matter how radiant their reigns, those who wear crowns must ultimately confront the fragility of the flesh, and that the spectre of disease remains history's most relentless shadow. Our journey through 14 royal figures has carried us across the most splendid civilizations, from the Egyptian pyramids, the Byzantine capital, European castles, and the Kremlin's mist, to the Andes and back to Nara in Japan. Yet a single truth unites them all, no matter how formidable a royal house may seem. It cannot withstand the ravages of leprosy or other contagious diseases. Each sovereign, whether Pharaoh Akhenaten confined in silent limestone tunnels, Empress Zoe Porphyrogenita masking her lesions with cosmetics, King Baldwin IV donning a silver mask in battle, or Empress Komyo confronting her blotches with Buddhist rites, teaches us a profound lesson about the fragility of the human body and the ways people choose either to conceal or to confront physical suffering. Their stories show us that regardless of fame, power, or devout faith, when disease strikes an invisible enemy, sparing no one, even the grandest palace walls can fall. We learn that hiding in the shadows of secrecy does more than protect authority. It exposes a deep-seated fear of human mortality. When courts label clear signs of leprosy as melancholy or nervous exhaustion, they inadvertently coat personal tragedy in a glossy veneer, leaving future generations unable to discern the truth. At the same time, this journey celebrates resilience and compassion. The traditions of founding infirmaries, reciting healing sutras, and performing rites to cleanse leprosy wounds stand as testaments to the care and responsibility of those in power. Even when their true aim may have been to conceal illness, they used authority and faith to fill the void left by sickness, offering the afflicted at least a measure of shelter. From this video, viewers should take away 3 key messages. First, power and the body always go hand in hand. Never place all your trust in outward glory while forgetting your own vulnerability. Second, silence is not always protective. Sometimes, covering up illness isolates people, depriving them of healing and shared support. Third, compassion is the most powerful weapon, from Empress Komyo's leprosy rites to Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna's neurology ward.